In South America, there's one country where the tallest peak is 6,263 meters above sea level, where the cold winds contend with snow and ice. And far below, rising from the mist, lush forest, seemingly endless, home to innumerable animal species. And off the coast, an ocean sanctuary, an archipelago of islands celebrated for its exceptional wildlife. The country is Ecuador, ideally situated on the equator, from the Amazon rainforest to the Galapagos Islands, with the snow-capped Andes in between. These enormously varied ecosystems make Ecuador a nation of mega biodiversity. In the eastern part of the country, there's an unending symphony of sounds. The Amazon rainforest is everywhere vibrant with life. This region of the enormous Amazon River basin is considered the planet's richest reserve of plant and animal life. During the great ice ages, untold species took refuge here. Some of them still survive. The Yasuni National Park has the greatest diversity of tree species found anywhere in the world. This lush vegetation is explained largely by the high humidity. The heavy rainfall stagnates over the clay soil, which is relatively impermeable. The scarlet macaw, like other wildlife, can drink just about anywhere, yet they seem to congregate around this small pool of water. This one seems reluctant to fly down to the ground, where it would be vulnerable, especially because many mammal species also drink at this spot. A cat could be lying in wait, hidden in the dense vegetation, ready to spring. So the scarlet macaws remain on the lookout and hesitate. But why do they come here to this tiny clearing when there's ample water everywhere? One of them goes first, possibly bolder than the rest, or thirstier. Seeing there's no immediate danger, the others follow. This patch of water is actually a freshwater spring, emerging from under the hill above the clearing. As the rainwater seeps through the soil, it takes on minerals that are essential for health. And because there are few such springs in the forest, the birds gather in the same places. There's a further benefit for the macaws. They can ingest clay to protect their digestive system from the acidity in the fruits they feed on. In the rainforest, many fruits are acidic, a defensive mechanism that plants have evolved to deter animals from eating them. This gives the fruit time to ripen and a better chance to germinate when it's on the ground. But the macaws have overcome that problem. Centuries of experience have taught the macaws the value of clay as a gastric dressing and a way to reduce the effects of the acids in fruits. Thus, In the equatorial forest, each plant or animal species has found a way to adapt to the constraints and advantages of its environment. The entire ecosystem hinges on a very complex balance where each plant, each creature has its place and plays a role. That's why the loss of any species is tragic, as it removes a vital part from a complex mechanism involving other species which may, each in its turn, be threatened. And this could lead to a catastrophic collapse. Yes, fortunately, nature can adapt to changes, but nature does things at its own slow pace, which requires enormous amounts of time. One witness of the exceptionally slow pace of evolution is the Hootsen. This amazing bird has hardly changed in 18 million years, probably because it had no need to do so. Hootsens are the oldest bird species still alive today. One original feature of the Hootsen is its digestive system, which resembles that of ruminants in certain ways. Indeed, it eats practically nothing but leaves, and in huge amounts, because the diet is nutritionally poor. It spends lots of time moving through the trees in search of the best shoots. This diet has the advantage of making the Hootsen's flesh indigestible to predators. That's why eagles, small cats, and monkeys will hunt young chicks, but not the adults. Not far away, this white-fronted capuchin has stolen eggs from the nest of a sphinx guan. These monkeys are highly evolved and quite intelligent. In fact, they're the only American monkey species that uses tools. It's easy for them to distract birds and steal their eggs. The hardest part is eating the eggs without being bothered by young members of the group. Capuchins live in groups of a dozen or more members. There's an alpha couple and a little else in the way of a social hierarchy. Food is abundant, so there's enough for everyone. Capuchins are active during the daytime, moving in search of fruit trees and other foods such as insects and small invertebrates. Capuchins often form a very noisy group, and the racket they make in the forest doesn't go unnoticed. These common squirrel monkeys are smaller. They have no trouble finding the capuchins and are eager to follow them. Not only do the capuchins alert them to any dangers, but they also lead them to the best fruit trees, and the squirrel monkeys take advantage of any scraps the capuchins happen to drop. Thunderstorms breaking throughout the day don't often affect the busy common squirrel monkeys. They communicate with high-pitched calls and cries. Unlike many other tree monkeys, squirrel monkeys don't have a prehensile tail, but they're still very agile. The squirrel monkey travels repeatedly over the same branches, marking them with scent so they can find the path to their favorite fruits and berries. Squirrel monkeys are naturally curious and playful, and they're sometimes captured for the pet trade. But the greatest danger they, and so many other species face, is the loss of habitat due to deforestation. The primary threat in this part of the Amazon is accelerating petroleum exploration and production. Whether it rains for an hour or for days on end, the rainfall always stops, and evaporation immediately begins, replenishing the clouds. For the white-throated toucan, the rain itself is not a problem, but mosquitoes, gnats, and other insects take refuge under its plumage. The toucan removes them with its beak. Toucans are primarily fruit eaters, so these insect parasites are just an annoyance. Insects thrive in the Varzea, the seasonal floodplain forest that is inundated several months a year. Here, the acidic black water flows slowly, tracing channels through a labyrinth of vegetation. Plants climb skyward as they contend for light. The foliage is so thick that visibility is limited to 1 meter or 2. The ground is a tangle of roots and rotting branches. Yet the forest rings out with innumerable chirping sounds, evidence of mysterious life. But what animals live here in the Varzea forest? The South American coati is perfectly adapted to this equatorial forest biome. Its long fur coat provides protection from insects. Its acute sense of smell, coupled with a long snout, means it can detect and capture prey or fruits from a distance. The coati's claws make it an excellent climber. Coatis usually live in families of 5 or 6 members, but this one, who's about 4 months old, is possibly lost or an orphan. Still, it seems capable of finding food on its own, and its omnivore diet means there should be no trouble doing so. But for the time being, it looks like this little coati wants a quiet place to nap, where it will be comfortable without falling. All the mammals that inhabit this dense forest are more or less capable of climbing trees for food and shelter. These monkeys, Spix's night monkey, show only the tips of their snouts at the end of the day, when they begin to go hunting. These nocturnal primates wait for the sun to set, as their large eyes cannot stand strong light. Night falls suddenly here at the equator. In an hour's time, the active wildlife changes completely as nocturnal species emerge. some because it's the best time to hunt, and others, on the contrary, because they are protected by the darkness. The amblypygi, or whip spider, may look like a frightening cross between a scorpion and a spider, yet it produces no venom and spins no web. Instead, it waits in ambush to catch insects with its pedipalps, which look like feet with claws. Thus, whether predators or prey, the creatures of the night are always on the alert. The least mistake could be fatal. The glacier on Mount Antisana, a volcano that reaches 5,750 meters above sea level, is the closest glacier to the Amazon rainforest. The water from rain and melting ice rushes to the foothills of the Andes before flowing into the Napo River. The water then flows slowly eastward into the Amazon and then the Atlantic Ocean. This is a journey of over 5,000 kilometers with some 20 cycles of evaporation and rainfall. Thus, the Andes mountain range, which extends across Ecuador from north to south, is the divide between two watersheds. The rivers that originate on the western slopes flow more swiftly into the Pacific Ocean. The Andes include many active volcanoes, yet the relief is due primarily to mountain building by plate tectonics over the past 70 million years. This has resulted in a stratification of different forest types, ranging from the rainforest in the Amazon basin to other forests as high as 3,500 meters above sea level. Plants have had millions of years to adapt to these changing geological and climate conditions. Many epiphytes have emerged. These are plants grow well above ground level, on branches where they benefit from the constantly humid air. Species that grow in the cloud forest at altitudes over 1,000 meters are very different from species found at lower altitudes that cannot withstand temperature variations or the lack of light. While the sun often shines in the early morning, clouds that form lower on the Amazonian plain rise at midday and darken the sky, justifying the term cloud forest. The rain pours down, suddenly swelling the riverbeds. From waterfalls to mountain torrents, the water rushes down the steep slopes on the eastern side of the Andes. For this pair of torrent ducks, the swift-running water is a means of navigation and a place to catch their food. The female, identifiable by her reddish breast, floats downriver. The male soon realizes that she is no longer in sight. But she's already managed to move upstream. With their large webbed feet, torrent ducks can face the most powerful currents. Undaunted by eddies and rocks, they plunge for underwater larvae and small invertebrates. Their population is threatened by the introduction of trout, which feed on the same prey, and by the construction of hydroelectric dams. This couple seems to have welcomed the next generation. Shortly after hatching, the featherweight torrent ducklings are able to fend for themselves in the water, carefully watched over by the parents, who guide them in the current. Ducklings have to stop frequently to catch their breath, and on the rocks, their plumage makes it hard for predators to spot them. As the only birds in this region that can feed underwater, torrent ducks occupy a unique ecological niche. Other species also nest on the shore. The torrent tyrannulet feeds on flying insects it captures near the banks and doesn't compete with torrent ducks for food, especially now that the tyrannulets are preparing for mating, looking for soft materials to build their nest amid the rocks. A little further up the riverbank, another bird is building its future home. It's an impressive project, as the nest hangs from a branch and will have to resist the wind. The mountain cacique is an outstanding building engineer, selecting sturdy fibers from the palm leaves. He carries each strand to the nest, puts it in place, and ties it to the other strands, weaving everything together to form a structure capable of bearing his weight. Shuttling back and forth from his nest to the trees, the mountain cacique can build his nest in a single day. It takes energy to build a nest. The many-banded aracari, on the other hand, uses cavities in tree trunks hollowed out by other species. That leaves all day to groom his plumage, to frolic and to feed. And the bird can look mighty tempting to the black-mantled tamarin. Tamarins are always alert to their surroundings, especially when a slate-colored hawk is perching in the vicinity. For the time being, at least, the hawk doesn't seem to be a danger. Black-mantled tamarins live in small groups. They are sociable creatures and sometimes even follow other species of monkeys or birds to locate fruit trees. And to find their way back, they mark favorite paths and locations with their scent. Deep in the forest, insects are dense from evening through early morning. This knowledge is second nature to the turquoise jay, who hunts mainly at dawn, when nocturnal insects are plump and easier to catch. The green jay is another insect eater. When he finds a good place to hunt, he stakes his claim to the territory, ready to defend it against intruders. The ochre-breasted anapida is a timid bird and seldom leaves the shade of the undergrowth. It flies down to the ground to capture small invertebrates. Hummingbirds are not very discreet. They are, however, very small, sometimes measuring less than 10 centimeters, and rarely weighing more than 10 grams. But their constant motion and bright iridescent plumage never go unnoticed. The rivalry between species isn't just a matter of the colors of their plumage. These tiny birds are extremely aggressive toward one another, chasing rivals away, going at them full speed, even if it means colliding mid-air. All to defend their food sources, generally masses of flowering plants. When a hummingbird rests, it's only for a moment, to recuperate, preen, or simply observe the surroundings. Their fighting spirit is easily explained. Hummingbirds need constant access to food. During the day, they must feed every 15 minutes or so. Theirs is the fastest metabolism in the animal kingdom, with a heart rate of some 1,000 beats per minute. They have to drink half their weight in sugar every day. Deprived of food, a hummingbird would die within 2 hours. All 132 species of hummingbirds found in Ecuador have developed long beaks that let them extract nectar from flowers with the tip of their tongue. They can do this mid-air, without landing, without damaging the petals. Rubbing their beaks on the pistil of each flower, they play a vital role as pollinators, which is essential for many plants' survival. This is a mutually beneficial arrangement, as are so many in nature. At higher altitudes, the mountains are more rugged, with sheer rock and gorges carved by the rivers. At 2,500 meters, very tall trees are rarer. Trees that haven't been carried away by landslides provide an excellent opportunity for spectacled bears to play. These two spectacled bear cubs are waiting for their mother. They haven't been weaned, so she left them here before seeking food for herself. Here they can play gently and improve their climbing skills. Also called the Andean bear, this is the only bear species native to South America. Unlike North American bears, the spectacled bear is almost exclusively vegetarian and doesn't hibernate because there are no harsh winters here. Spectacled bears spend most of their time in high-altitude meadows at about 4,000 meters above sea level, above the tree line. But for a few weeks, they go down to the cloud forest to feed on the ripening fruit. These are plants the cubs have never seen before. Everything they do is a matter of play, exploration, and physical exercise. The name spectacled bear comes from the light-colored patterns that some of them have around their eyes, and not because they are nearsighted, although they are indeed nearsighted. When the cubs are tired, they'll nap on the nest of branches prepared by their mother. They're awakened by a familiar sound. Their mother is back. The mother bear has been wearing a radio transmitter collar ever since farmers in the nearby valley caught her eating their corn in a field. They relocated her to a higher altitude and have been tracking her ever since to check that she doesn't return to the farmland. She was very fortunate because in other places, spectacle bears have been killed for doing the same thing. For the time being, her main concern is returning to the nest to nurse her 7-month-old cubs. After nursing, the entire family falls asleep. An hour later, the nap is over and it's time to move. The cubs carefully observe their mother's every move before following her lead. It's more difficult with small paws. It's a good thing they can count on rugged claws. Their mother is leading them to the opposite shore, but when they start to climb, she spots a male bear coming downhill through the scrub, moving in their direction. She changes course immediately. The male could kill her cubs in order to mate with her. She prefers to stay at this lower altitude, hoping he won't pick up her scent. Fortunately, the wind is blowing in the right direction, downhill. Having found nothing of interest, the male goes back up as the family watches attentively. Here they will wait until the danger is past. The multitude of waterfalls cascading from the cliffs is a sign that there are other untamed places at higher altitudes. At nearly 4,000 meters above sea level, the landscape changes radically. The cold, the winds, the thin air, and the strong ultraviolet radiation impose their demands on the plants that have managed to survive in this environment. Most are endemic species, which can grow only in this biotope called the paramo ecosystem. Here, a continuous wind dries the ground, but the soil and the rock are covered with mosses, which hold moisture and provide a substrate for other plants. Certain plants can live like this for several hundred years. The secret to their longevity might lie in their extremely slow growth. Despite the harsh climate, this environment still hosts a great diversity of plant species, remarkable for their shapes and colors. The lakes and ponds form a series of wetlands that are invaluable to the few bird species that can survive at this altitude. Naturally, there are fewer animal species at this altitude, but the presence of raptors, like this puna hawk, indicates that they find enough prey to survive. In addition to small birds and rodents, larger mammals are found on the flanks of the Antisana volcano and at the foot of the Antisana glacier. The white-tailed deer have also acclimatized to the paramo. They live in small family groups consisting of a dominant male, his harem, and their young offspring. These high isolated valleys provide food and safety. Spectacled bears aren't a danger to adults, and the only threat comes from cougars that are few and far between. The swirling winds bring a variety of scents, some of them intriguing. Even when grazing, the buck is ever on the alert, attentive to the least change in his surroundings. Especially to the scent of blood. These spacious grassy plains are now also used for cattle grazing. But in this rugged terrain, with its harsh climate, any fall can be fatal. After breaking her bones, this poor cow dragged herself there but died of thirst. In this wild place, one creature's death allows others to survive. Condors have already spotted the carcass. But it's a young carunculated caracara that lands first, before the condors. Other adults join in and also lay their claim to the carcass. A couple of adult caracaras and two younger birds attack the flesh, preserved by the cold of the night. This is a rare feast for them because, most often, scavengers have to settle for small rodents, amphibians, worms, and insects. They're also capable of digging for seeds. Opportunistic feeding is especially important for the caracaras because food is scarce at this altitude and will thus be fought over. Nothing ever goes to waste in these desolate climes. Other scavengers have a different strategy, conserving energy to restrict their nutritional needs. Consider the largest of the raptors, the Andean condor. With a wingspan of 3 meters, the condor has the greatest wing area of any living bird. Soaring on updrafts, it covers enormous distances. So great is its ability to navigate that it almost never needs to flap its wings. When the condor sleeps, its body temperature falls several degrees. In the morning, it wakes slowly and stretches to invigorate its muscles and joints, waiting for the air to warm sufficiently to cause updrafts along the rock face. Only then can the condor take flight over the void. The condor exercises perfect control over flight by directing the primary feathers at the wingtips. It can soar to altitudes of 6,000 meters, cross mountain summits, and seek carrion in distant valleys. A male condor will sometimes travel in search of a mate. The female lays a single egg, and both parents will take care of it together. Like many long-lived species, and they can live for up to 50 years, the condor breeds very few offspring, on average only one every 2 or 3 years. Thus, when necessary, the species regulates its reproduction to avoid overpopulation. At higher altitudes, nearly 5,000 meters above sea level, begins the realm of eternal ice and snow, where not even the hardiest plants can survive. The cold, the wind, and the thin air prevent any form of perennial life. Glaciers reign in majesty on the volcano peaks. Rising to 5,900 meters above sea level, Cotopaxi is not the highest volcano in Ecuador, but it's one of the most beautiful, with its perfect cone and its red and black lava contrasting with the sparkling white walls of ice. But that's where its danger lies. When the volcano awakens, the Earth's heat melts the glacier. Large blocks break off and water rushes downhill, causing devastating avalanches and mudslides. The canyons that scar the volcano's slopes and the broader valley below bear witness to the powers of the water, mud, and ice. The base of the volcano is classified as a natural park, a peaceful sanctuary for wildlife. The Colpeo fox is an opportunistic predator, able to adapt to vastly different environments. Very much at ease in the high grasses where he can go unseen, this fox spends hours and hours pacing the sides of the volcano in search of carrion or prey. And when he rests in the sun, can we imagine he dreams of the rabbits that form the mainstay of his diet? Driven by hunger, the fox will hunt over considerable distances, but the swirling wind makes it hard to follow the scent or sound of a prey. So he searches, guided by instinct and experience. He can track a bird over several kilometers, up to nearly 4,800 meters above sea level. But then the fox is on open terrain, and if the bird finally flies away, then the Culpio's efforts were all in vain. All he can do is catch his breath and try to warm his body in sunlight while the sunlight lasts. These high-altitude valleys of the Andes are formidable, with their rugged relief, harsh climate, and frequent storms. There are moments of sunshine, but they cannot last, as clouds from the Pacific contend with the fogs and mists from the Amazon rainforest. The paramo nevertheless fulfills an important ecological function by storing both carbon and moisture. Global warming could affect the plant life that has taken millions of years to adapt to the cold, and that could not withstand a sudden rise in temperature. The plant species living here help to maintain the moisture balance. Loss of these plants could create a vicious circle of desertification, as moss is replaced by only dust, and animal life, so fragile already, is doomed to disappear. There are indeed a number of unexpected species in these remote places. Several small herds of wild horses thrive at the foot of Cotopaxi. These horses descend from ancestors imported during the Spanish colonization in the 17th century. Horses that escaped from the haciendas where they were used to herd cattle. Horses that fled to these high plateaus protected by the volcano. Over the generations, they have acclimatized, and now they are free to roam these wide open spaces. Even more amazing is a hummingbird species that lives only between 3,500 and 5,200 meters above sea level. To resist the sub-zero temperatures at night, the Ecuadorian hill star enters into a torpor, close to a state of hibernation before slowly re-emerging each morning. Other birds can endure the freezing cold. Rufous-bellied seed snipes feed on seeds and succulent plants that they peck at on the ground. Vicuñas can survive the cold with their excellent wool coats, with fibers as fine and warm as its domesticated cousin, the alpaca. While native to Peru and Bolivia, the vicuña was introduced to Ecuador in the late 1970s. Since then, the population has gradually multiplied, as its only predators are cougars, which are rare, and foxes. Vicuñas live in small family groups consisting of an adult male, a number of females, and their offspring under a year and a half old. Mid-afternoons, the clouds suddenly rise from the valley. In a matter of minutes, the humidity rises, the temperature drops, and visibility is reduced to just a few meters. The vicuñas are used to this and take advantage to graze on plants covered with dew. The newer shoots are softer, sweeter, juicier, and easier to digest. The persistent wind finally drives away the cloud cover, revealing the summit of Chimborazo, the highest volcano in Ecuador. The ice-capped volcano rises to 6,263 meters above sea level. Like everywhere else, alas, the glacier is receding and shrinking dramatically. While climate change has already had a drastic effect on the polar regions, there were hopes that the equatorial zones would be spared to some extent. But process of melting snow and ice simply started later. By the end of the century, even this giant mountain will lose its ice, depriving biotopes at lower altitudes of the water reserves they need for survival. The western slopes of the Andes, on the Pacific Ocean side, are also covered by a cloud forest, but an entirely different forest with different species. And there are even greater differences in species in the westernmost region of Ecuador, 1,000 kilometers off the coast, the fabulous Galapagos Islands.